CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by the Heinz History Center. We have been hyping up their Pittsburgh Hidden History exhibit since it opened. And if you haven't checked it out, now is your chance. It truly is such a cool opportunity to look behind the curtain and see what the curators themselves actually love the most. Teeny tiny toy collections, spooky stuff, a huge riverboat wheel, even a bunch of shivs. The whole exhibit has gotten such rave reviews that they're keeping it going way longer than they initially planned. But it's not going to last forever, so cross a river, cross a bridge, and get thyself to the Heinz History Center. And don't forget, kids 17 and under always get in for free. Plan your visit at heinzhistorycenter.org. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, Election Day is almost here, Tuesday, November 4th, and I know it's not a presidential election or even a midterm, but Pennsylvanians still have something huge to show up for, like preserving our access to reproductive care like abortion, voting rights, and paid sick leave. Today, I'm with CityCast Mallory Falk to talk about some of the biggest races you need to know about here in the city, the county, and the state. It's Wednesday, October 29th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Mallory, hello. Election Day is almost upon us. November 4th, Tuesday.
Yes, maybe one day it will be a national holiday, but for now, just got to squeeze it in before after work or on a lunch break.
Crossing all my fingers and toes on that one. If you are listening to us, I hope that you are registered to vote here in Pennsylvania. Unlike the primaries, which we've been complaining about for months, anyone of any party can vote here in Pennsylvania, but you had to have sorted out your registration by now.
Yeah. So we are going to be talking about what you will see on your ballot, but we want to start off with just the basics, the things you need to know to be able to do your civic duty next Tuesday. So first of all, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We will have a link in our show notes where you can find your polling place. And what is critical to know is that if you are in line by 8 p.m., they have to let you vote. I don't really imagine this is the kind of election where there's going to be lines around the block past 8 p.m. But just know, as long as you're there by 8, you get the right to vote.
I mean, I want that, though. I want that for Allegheny County. High turnout, please. Anyway, if you are voting at a new polling place, you might need to provide an accepted form of identification. So that can include like a driver's license, passport, student ID, one of your bills, a bank statement, a paycheck. There's a huge list. But if you're a returning voter, you should not need an ID.
Yes, and if you are skipping your polling place altogether and choosing to vote by mail, as we are recording this, you can still mail it in, but you are running out of time. Your ballot has to be received by election officials by the time polls close. You can't just drop it in the mailbox on Election Day.
Right.
So you can drop it off at the Allegheny County office building downtown or one of the county's satellite locations during these designated dates and times to return ballots. And if you're nervous, you're not sure if your ballot has, made it to officials yet, there's actually an online ballot tracker that you can use to check. We will put that in the show notes too, so that you can make sure, breathe that sigh of relief, that your vote has been received by Election Day.
Absolutely. And if you need a refresher on any of these rules, if you want to send them to a buddy, to a family member, we have it all on our website, pittsburgh.citycast.fm, as well as everything we're about to talk about, all the election races, stuff like that are important to know about coming up headed into Tuesday. So we're going to start, I guess, at the top level. We're going to talk about state, city, and county. But I mean, God, I think the most important thing we're gonna have on our ballots this year is at the top, Pennsylvania, our state Supreme Court.
Yes, this is so important. We actually did a whole episode about it, so go back and listen in case you missed it. But Pennsylvania's Supreme Court, it is the highest court in the state, and this is the question on your ballot that could determine things like voting rights and abortion access in our state.
Which I feel like some of us take for granted a little bit living in Pennsylvania because we have been, by and large, protected. But I think it's important to remember that this stuff is not codified into law in Pennsylvania. It's protected because we have a governor who's extremely outspoken about it and a Supreme Court that up to this point has largely ruled in favor of maintaining this kind of access. That might not be true if 3 judges up for retention this year don't continue to stay on the bench. So we're going to talk about what that means. Retention retention. It's a little bit different than how other states do it.
Right. So essentially, when judges get elected to our state Supreme Court and to all of the highest courts here in Pennsylvania, they're elected to serve a 10-year term. And then once those 10 years are up, they are up for retention, essentially for re-election. It is extremely rare for a judge not to be retained. It's only happened once, but there is a lot of money and attention getting poured into this year's Supreme Court judicial retention races, essentially because voting yes to retain these 3 judges is voting yes for the court to remain under Democratic control. Voting no opens the door to replace those judges with Republicans and change the makeup of the court.
Yeah, the 3 judges that are up for retention, all 3 Democrats, Republicans are saying in a ton of mailers. I've received a bunch of them, a lot of TV ads and radio ads. I see signs all over the road saying that you need to vote no because they're too radical. There's some election ads that I've seen up that allege some stuff that just categorically is false. So I think it's important to be aware of this and what it truly means to vote yes and vote no.
So to be clear, voting yes for each of these judges means that these 3 Democrats stay: Christine Donahue, Kevin Doherty, and David Wecht. Voting no means that we will eventually be electing new justices in their place and could change up the makeup of the court. And if you want to dig deeper into this, check our show notes for a link to the podcast where we talk all about it.
Mallory did a wonderful job talking through all of this with Spotlight PA's Stephen Caruso. Highly suggest you check it out. 2 other state courts are also going to be on your ballot. I would point y'all to pittsburgh.citycast.fm. These courts are really important, and the people that are up for election also really matter, but it's a little bit more into the weeds. So that's Commonwealth Court and Superior Court. They're kind of that intermediate step between Supreme Court and the Court of Common Pleas, which is what we have here in Allegheny County. So these are the 2 that handle everything that falls between that. Please check out our website for more on those races.
So moving on to the city, we're going to kick things off with the mayoral race, which is the most consequential race in the city of Pittsburgh, but we probably already know the answer. This race is typically decided in the primary.
Yes, very high profile, but everybody kind of knows the outcome still.
A Republican has not served as mayor of Pittsburgh in a century, but you never know.
Right. So whoever wins will be the 62nd mayor of Pittsburgh. You've got Democrat Corey O'Connor, who is the current Allegheny County controller. A controller is somebody who's a step removed from we have one for the county, one for the city, and they audit things and see what's in working order, how things could be improved or made more efficient, stuff like that. Before that position, O'Connor served on city council for 11 years. He's also the son of a former mayor, which we've talked about before, the late Bob O'Connor, who died in office. It was so sad. This was in the early 2000s. And then you've got Republican Tony Moreno, who is a retired police detective. He feels very strongly about our public safety policies here in the city. This is his 2nd time seeking office, although notably this time he is running without support from the Pittsburgh and Allegheny County GOP committees.
And if you want to learn more about these candidates, if you're the unicorn voter out there who's still undecided at this moment, we did talk to both of them extensively ahead of the primary. So you can check out those interviews and hear them talk at length about their visions for the city of Pittsburgh.
And I'd also shout out a couple of other pods we've done just about the 2026 budget, which the next mayor is going to inherit, because there have been some hefty criticisms of it. The word sloppy keeps getting tossed around. So if you want to catch up on that, we've got you covered too. This episode is sponsored by Quantum Theater. They are in their 35th season, and you can catch their upcoming play, Enron. Yes, The Company. It's described as a high-octane odyssey through the glittering freefall of American capitalism. And I gotta say, Quantum, you are actually literally selling it. I'm so on board for this. The show is written by playwright Lucy Preble. She was a writer and executive producer for HBO's Succession, so you know it's going to be full of satire, high drama, and a nebby glimpse into the lives of the ultra-wealthy. For example, if you are a scholar of corporate infamy, you can look for true celebrity sightings. We're talking Jeff Skilling, Andy Fasto, and the Southern charmer himself, Ken Lay. To really get you into the business mindset, to get you ready for the play, Quantum Theater is taking their performance high above the skyline at Oxford Center. I love that they're doing this. It's exactly the right amount of extra. If you want to check out one of the 90s most iconic cautionary tales, check out Enron. It's open October 30th through November 23rd. You can get your tickets at quantumtheater.com/Enron. We are with you today thanks to the Greater Pittsburgh Nonprofit Partnership. It's a program of the Forbes Funds, and they have something big coming up. So this year marks the 20th year of the GPNP Summit, and it's such a great opportunity for anyone working to strengthen our region's nonprofits. Everyone is invited, whether you're a leader, an employee, a volunteer, or even just really passionate about an organization's impact. The theme this year is AI Advocacy in Action, and more than 600 changemakers are meeting at Nova Place to talk about how innovation and collaboration might shape the future of social good. Attendees are going to hear from national thought leaders, create community with peers from across Western Pennsylvania, and hopefully leave with ideas and tools to further their nonprofit missions. It's going to give you all the right energy to head into the new year. Register now at gpnpsummit.org and join the conversation that's shaping what's next for Pittsburgh's nonprofit community.
So up next is City Council. So voters choose 9 City Council representatives every 4 years. It alternates between even and odd number districts.
Right.
So this year the evens are up. If you have no clue what district you're in, definitely check out our website. We've got a link to like a handy little map where you can plug in your address and find out. But city councilors, they do really important stuff, propose, debate, and vote on legislation, approve contracts, allocate millions for city resources. If you have been following the ongoing debate about how to create more affordable housing in Pittsburgh, these are the people who are deciding like what policies end up in place. So they serve really critical roles.
Yeah, and they've all been Democrats for many years, but there are some interesting races up if you're more interested in an alternative candidate. So districts 2, 4, 6, and 8 are up. District 8, Councilor Erica Strasburger is running unopposed, so we won't talk about her quite as much. But District 2, I think that one is probably the one I have seen the most mailers, the most information about.
Yeah, so this seat is open because the current councilor, Teresa Cale-Smith, is retiring. This district is in the West End. So we're going to see a face-off between her longtime chief of staff, Kim Salinetro, who's a lifelong resident of this district, president of the Banksville Civic Association, says her biggest issue is, quote, equitable neighborhood investment.
That's something a lot of city councilors have talked about, just this perception that like East End neighborhoods, for example, get all the money and the resources and the clout, and neighborhoods like, Larimer, the Hill District, or some of our South Hills or West End neighborhoods maybe don't.
Yes, so that's a big issue for her. She's running against Aaron Koper, a Republican who we've talked about on the show before because she spoke at the 2024 Republican National Convention and says her biggest issue, surprise, surprise, is public safety.
Yes, she's been a pretty vocal supporter of President Trump. But there's also an independent on the ticket this time, David Tessiter. So he's a local activist and says he wants to focus on addressing corruption. We've got links if you want to read more about their bios and some of the different things that they say they stand for.
So the next district is District 4, kind of similar to District 2. It's led by Anthony Coghill, who represents the South Hills and also talks a lot about how his corner of the city is not getting like the resources and attention it deserves. So he is the incumbent, a Democrat. He's been a big critic of Mayor Ed Gainey, especially when it came to inclusionary zoning, that piece of affordable housing policy that would require developers to build affordable units in, big new buildings. And he is chair of City Council's Public Safety Committee. He's got 2 challengers in this race.
Yeah, so the first one is Republican Tracy Larger, I hope I'm saying that right, who says that she wants to hire more police and create more community-led safety organizations. An independent Brian Naughton, he says he wants to fix the roads and, quote, realign the tax burden. Once again, we will point you all to some great resources with some more about their bios and their wish lists.
And then we've got District 6, which includes downtown, uptown, the Hill District, some other areas as well. So this is another one where we've got Democratic incumbent Dan Lavelle. He is actually the president of City Council. He's been serving since 2010. And he says that housing is, the biggest challenge in the city. I mean, I think we've heard this echoed over and over again that there is not enough housing here. So he created something called the Housing Opportunity Fund, which tries to kind of support development and preservation of affordable and accessible housing in the city. So that's been, a real important element to him.
And Lavelle has been a pretty close ally of Gainey. I would say by and large, he was in favor of that mandatory provision for inclusionary zoning and voted against the amendment that made it voluntary. Republican Jacob Dumont is a heavy equipment operator. He's talked a lot about priorities around infrastructure and supports for small businesses. And then there's going to be a write-in candidate, someone we've talked to on the show before, Lisa Freeman. She runs the Freeman Family Farm and Greenhouse in the north side. It's got a bunch of gorgeous public art, and that had been in the works for ages. Just an opportunity to bring like a locally owned grocery type space to Manchester, which has been without one for a long time.
Yeah, so those are the competitive races for council.
And last up in the city is the school board. So 5 of 9 Pittsburgh public school seats for their board of directors are up for election. On your ballots, the candidates are all Democrats, all unopposed. This one was really decided in the primary, but it's one more thing you're going to see on your ballot on Tuesday.
And reminder, the district is considering some big closures and consolidations. So while we already know who's going to be winning these races, they will be determining some really important education policy in the years to come.
Okay, moving on to county, Allegheny County. We're going to start with county council on this one.
Yeah, so a refresher, these county councilors, they serve 4-year terms and they work with our county executive, Sarah Innamorato, to, create, amend, and approve county ordinances.
Which basically just means like the way we live, like any rules around things you might want to do here in the county. Like, I mean, these are silly, I guess, but like say you wanted to burn something on your land here in Allegheny County, like they have rules around that. That would be an ordinance. If you wanted to like rent a room or like something on your property, that's another one. Paid sick leave, actually. We've talked about the city's policy for that, but the county has its own. That was all done via ordinance.
Yeah. So if you really want to be able to burn tires on your lawn, I guess this is an important one to pay attention to.
I don't think that's allowed anywhere.
But yeah, so they do that. They, appoint board positions. They approve budgets and tax increases. Like they were the ones who ultimately approved that county tax increase last year that we talked a lot about on the show. Mm-hmm. So there are 15 seats, 13 that are determined by district, and then 2 that are at large. 8 of those seats are up for grabs in this election.
Yeah. And then, gosh, in terms of stakes, I feel like there's so much happening at the county level right now. Like, we talk about it usually as if it's its own thing, but it relies a lot on the county and county funding. Pittsburgh Regional Transit is an authority under the larger umbrella of the county. So all this stuff happening with PRT and our bus system, our underground, like all of that is part of the county and county council and how we talk about it. Jail oversight, the Allegheny County Jail, everything that they do. They've talked a lot about county-wide property reassessment, which would make your house, your property, your land, your taxes would be more in line with the actual value of that. But for many of us, that would probably mean that our bills also go up. So like that's not always a popular thing to trigger. And I mean, we've also talked about this too, but the county's just in such a precarious financial position right now. Council voted recently to freeze spending and hiring as much as they can while they're borrowing from themselves effectively to pay the bills. This is because the state is in a little bit of turmoil because we don't have a budget yet.
Only state in the nation at this point.
Yes. The one other holdout figured out their lives. We have not yet. And our federal government, as we're recording this, is shut down. So all this money that we would usually get from state and federal sources just isn't coming right now. So the county can't stop doing things like 911. So instead, they're having to pay it all and kind of borrow themselves forward.
So truly crossing our fingers that by the time whoever gets elected in this race is in office, the state will have a budget and the federal government will be operating again in some fashion.
Fingers crossed.
But we're not going to list all of the candidates here because there are so many open seats. So head on over to our website to get the full list and learn more about who's running.
Definitely. A couple other things on the county level. So the county sheriff, if you're not familiar with the sheriff's office, they do a bunch of things. They're like regular police, but they're also the branch of law enforcement here locally that I think is most closely aligned with our court system. So they can investigate things and execute warrants, that sort of stuff. But they also do stuff like providing security for the courthouse. They do transports. They serve legal documents. They also importantly do things like sheriff sales. So if you've ever like bought something at a sheriff sale, they're the ones who actually conduct that, and which often is around confiscated property. If you haven't ever dug into that, by the way, it's worth a look-see on the county website.
What's an example, Megan? Give us a little tease.
I mean, so many vehicles, like truly. We were talking about that as it relates to the Pittsburgh International like car auction situation. Sheriff sales have you covered in all manner of vehicles that have been lost, abandoned, confiscated, all the things.
Okay, so always cars. But on the ballot, we've got the incumbent Democrat Kevin Kraus facing off against Republican challenger Brian Weissmantle. They both have pretty extensive experience in law enforcement.
And last up, Court of Common Pleas. So judges elected to this court at the very local level, they hear cases related to things that happen here or involve people here. So the judges there can get assigned to one of 4 divisions, civil, criminal, family, and something called orphans court.
It sounds very medieval.
It really does. There are 13 candidates running for 8 seats. And while all of these candidates are registered as Democrats, some are also running as Republicans, since the position is considered nonpartisan, and I guess they just want to cover their bases. This is a fairly common thing to do. The Allegheny County Bar Association has shared a list of their recommended judges, the ones that they endorse.
Some of them are highly recommended, others are just recommended, and then there are some on there that they specifically say are not recommended.
I forgot they had that level of specificity, actually. And then a group of progressive organizations also during the primary season, they had endorsed a separate slate of 8. These were folks that said they were committed to criminal justice reform. 5 of them are now on the ballot you're going to see on Tuesday.
By the way, I just looked up what Orphans Court does just to confirm for myself. So it does a whole bunch of things, but it includes like adoptions, marriage licenses, inheritance and estate tax matters, stuff to do with like estates, trusts, and wills. So maybe an episode for a future date. I would love to learn the history of how it came to be called Orphans Court and what its early days were like.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Don't forget, if you have not made your plan to vote yet, please do so. Again, that is Tuesday, November 4th. You can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. All the details are at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow with more from around the city. We'll talk to you soon. And I know I put a note for myself, but I don't remember where I put it.